Hey, welcome everybody. I am Greg Ryder, and this is the AI Mastermind. And joining me today is one of my favorite guys I know in the world, Jeff Barnes, CEO of Angel Investors Network and CEO of the Mastermind Investment Club and part of the Patriot Growth Fund and on the leading edge of AI and AI technology and investing. And my son Joshua Ryder is going to join us soon. He's a little bit late coming back from a doctor's appointment. But simply, here's the goal. Every week, we want to bring you some AI intelligence that most people are not talking about, most people aren't hearing yet, and we want to help share with you exactly what it means for your wealth and your business. Because if you're not on point with what's going on in AI, you have a chance to lose everything. On the flip side, you have a chance to really rock and roll and have wealth like you've never seen before. So, hey, welcome, Jeff.
Thanks so much for having me here, Greg. Really excited about this. This is going to be a lot of fun talking about all these different topics.
Are you ready? It's pretty exciting what's going on. So, you know what? Let's start with Google. Okay?
Love it.
I love that picture of you in the jacket. How many of you remember a year ago, year and a half ago, I'm not sure exactly how long it was, but Google's dead. Google search is dead. You guys heard about Google search being dead? Okay? So, let's think about this. How about you, Jeff? Do you remember hearing about that?
Oh, absolutely. We were talking about AI is changing everything. It's changing everything in the business world. And Google search and all these different search engines are going to fall by the wayside. And it's going to be one of these massive shifts in how people find information and use information and where they gather their information. And so as a result, everybody's saying, well, Google, one of their big things that's driving all their revenue is all the advertising on Google search. And so if people aren't using Google search anymore, then Google search is going to go down. And so Google as a valuable company is going to go down. And what you're about to show obviously changes the narrative on that completely.
There you go. Okay. So Google is crushing its earnings, right? So if you're an investor and you haven't been in the market, this is the goal, is that you understand that it's literally time to get in the market. It's not too late. It's time to get in the market. So here, let me play this video.
Google has crushed their earnings. Alphabet reported $109.9 billion, 22% year-on-year growth, $62.6 billion in profit. Google Cloud hit $20 billion revenue with 63% growth, outpacing both AWS and Azure.
So I'm going to pause it as we go. Are you kidding me? Are you guys hearing this? $62 billion in profit. In profit. Wow, that's just mind boggling, right? When everyone was talking about search is dead and they're going to be out of the woods, and then Google Cloud stood out with 20 billion in revenue with 63% growth.
I want to show you guys something too that this is incredible, guys. Look at this. So Google, Alphabet is the parent company of Google. 1 year, 131.66% gain in their stock price. Right? It's just incredible. You think about this, you think about these massive companies and you go to your financial advisor or somebody and there's like, yeah, you can go ahead and get a 12% year over year growth if you invest with me and you put your money in your mutual funds and some of that stuff. 131%. We're talking more than 10% per month. And we're talking about big companies. You might expect to see that in a private company that's growing and on the Inc. 5000 or something like that. You don't see that in publicly traded companies on a regular basis, but it's happening consistently. We'll talk about a few of those companies on the show and what's driving that growth and where you should be looking to make sure you're on that curve with them.
If you guys are not paying attention to what's really happening in the world with AI, that's what this podcast is about, is to motivate you, inspire you to pay attention and to create some wealth from what's getting ready to happen. So let's go back to the video, play a little bit more here. The stage, boom, boom.
AI drove results across the entire Google ecosystem. Interestingly enough, Google now has 750 million monthly active users. Dave, let's go to you for this. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's interesting that YouTube acquisition is greatest acquisition of all time, although the rival would be Instagram by Facebook, which is now the majority of its market cap, or maybe Google's acquisition of DeepMind, which is now driving
Sure, DeepMind for sure.
growth.
I remember I met Chad Hurley, who sold YouTube for $1.65 billion. And interestingly enough, I don't know if people know this story, but YouTube, actually Google already had Google Video, but YouTube was scaling faster because it had no lawyers and had no restrictions on what you could post. And they were scaling so rapidly that Google had no choice but to buy them.
Yeah. The story within the story here too is that Google's search volume flattened in about 2017. It's been flat ever since. Yet the revenue just goes, how's that possible? And the way that's possible is ad targeting. And the driver of ad targeting is what? It's AI. And so Google had an easy road to where they are now, in the sense that every time they worked on AI, it instantly turned into revenue and profit. Very different from Tesla or from OpenAI. So they really had the perfect storm of opportunity, and they took advantage of it, to their credit.
You think about that, and that's some of my favorite guys on the podcast, Moonshots, Peter Diamandis, and the guy that was just talking, he runs a I think $56 billion investment fund, and they're just wicked smart guys. And this is where we're trying to get our information from, is we're following some wicked smart guys. We're trying to curate it and bring this information to you. But again, emphasizing what Jeff just said, I don't remember the day where you could get 100% return on a blue chip stock in 12 months. And there's other ones that are like literally within 4 months, 6 months, 8 months. So it's time to get on the bandwagon and start paying attention to creating wealth. And I'm going to talk about that in just a second. But you got any other comments on this Google play, Jeff?
I just think one of the things that's really important for folks to understand is that the Fortune 500, the people that make up most of the Dow Jones, the S&P 500, they change out pretty regularly, right? And you go back, you look at what was on there 20 years ago versus what's on there today, and it's not the same landscape at all. And the fact is that if you're not staying up to date on the trends and what's happening, then you could very well be falling behind, not just technologically and in your business, but from a wealth creation standpoint as well. Because if you're following the advice of 20 years ago, heck, even 5 years ago or 10 years ago, then it's not the same advice anymore. And it's not going to be the same thing that's going to be generating your long-term wealth creation. And you and I both, Greg, our whole focus on wealth creation is not just to have money, right? That's not the goal. The goal is to have freedom and autonomy and do what you want in life because the money's taken care of. And I can tell you, as a guy who's been on both sides of that coin, when the money's not taken care of because you put your money in the wrong place or the wrong investments. I remember during the financial crisis, I had my money I'd bought stocks of banks that I thought were really cheap and really undervalued. I didn't know the full scope of things. And so those banks actually went to zero instead of going back up. And I put my money in the wrong place and it hurt. And so if you're on the right side of this and you can actually start generating that wealth because you're paying attention, then you can start having that freedom that you really want in life, as opposed to scrounging and trying to figure out how to make ends meet.
No, it's pretty interesting. And I got this next clip I want to play. And Jeff and I got introduced to Manus, Manus, and we started playing with it specifically because Manus had gone under contract to be acquired by Meta. And if you guys have been around me for any length of time, you know that I'm a big believer in buying media, and he who can spend the most money to acquire customer wins. So I'm like, okay, this is the AI platform and it was one of the very first platforms that had agentic AI agents. If this is who Meta's betting on and they're going to integrate with Meta, we better start learning it. We better start getting it. And so we did, and we do, and we start using it. But then guess what? China blew up the deal, right? So I want to play a clip about this deal being blown up and how this really is pretty significant, something to talk about, because let me play this clip and we'll go from there.
China blocks Meta's Manus AI acquisition. So Meta acquired for $2.5 billion, or at least they thought they did, Manus back in December 2025. And China is driving it to be unwound, blocking the deal. China barred the founders from leaving the country, even though employees, technology, and investors' payouts had already been completed. I had lunch when I was in Singapore. I had lunch with the Meta lead that basically
China blocked the deal. It kept the people from leaving the country. Jeff, how many investments do you want to make that involve China?
Absolutely none, right? When you start investing cross borders, you start looking at all these different things, you have to look at what are the geopolitical risks of some of those investments. And if you're not aware of what they are, and you're not aware of the fact that a country, a government like China can say, nope, sorry, you're not going to do that deal. And you've invested on the idea that this is going to be a game changer and going to make the value of your stock even more valuable. And all of a sudden the government comes in and says, sorry, we're not allowing that to happen for one reason or another. Again, a bad play. And it makes you really rethink your portfolio strategy and say, do I really want to invest in these things that could be swept out from underneath you just because the government's, nah, we don't really want to do that, right? So yeah, investing in anything where there's, especially China, but there's other countries around the world that will come in and say, no, we're not going to allow this to happen. There's a lot of reasons why they wouldn't do that or why they would stop a deal like that. But the fact is that it can make a major impact on the value of a company. And $2.5 billion is nothing to sneeze at, right? I know that Meta has plenty of money, and so it's probably not hurting them too bad. But imagine if you had invested in a company like that thinking, oh man, this is going to be the next big win. I love it. And then all of a sudden, sorry, that business doesn't exist anymore, or your stock is worth nothing because the government just said, sorry, we're not doing this deal anymore. It's pretty impactful. And it just goes to show you, and I think you're going to play this in this clip, of what's happening from a geopolitical standpoint and how that can actually impact these companies' growth.
And I see Josh just made it here. Hey, Josh, welcome to the AI Mastermind. We just got done talking. I just played the intro of this clip. When you think about this and you go, the employees and the tech investor payouts were completed. They spent the money, right? They actually moved from China to Singapore, and it's actually a 5-minute long clip. So I don't know that, let me play a little bit more of it and we can maybe comment on it. And if you guys want to pause it at any time, let me know. But what Jeff just said, as an investor, we want to make sure that you're cognizant of the potential risks of who you're making your investments in and with, right? And that's what the whole Mastermind Investment Club is. We'll kind of mention a little bit later with Jeff and Mastermind Investment Club, is leveraging the multiple people to try to figure this stuff out, because it's not easy, but you definitely got to think this stuff through. And again, if I were to come back here just real quick, and let's go look at Meta.
They fled literally.
When you look at Meta's stock price for the last year, it's not 637, 604. It's actually down. One of the very few stocks down. And I'm trying to think of when I think they announced that back up here when it hit 767. I'm not exactly sure when they did announce it, but let's play a little bit more of this clip.
Jet in the middle of the night from China to Singapore to do this deal, because they knew if they stayed inside China, they would not be able to drive the acquisition.
So where are they now?
The last day I knew, they were still in Singapore, along with all the code and everything required to make the sale. Now, how this is being unwound, I don't know if this is political intrigue. I didn't read enough into the story to find out, is this a deal that's being governed between the leadership of Singapore and China? I'm sure our viewers will dig into that if they're interested.
No, it's Meta. It's Meta. Remember, China in general still does a lot of business with Meta, and China.
So pressure.
I would, just based on public reporting, I would infer that it's political pressure that China has over Meta to compel them to unwind it, the risk of potentially losing business on China or China adjacent areas.
Wow, this is turning into a true Cold War.
I need to chime in here on that one, Greg. I mean, it's the Cold War here. We're not just dropping bombs and taking over countries and things like that for resources. That's obviously still happening in parts of the world, but this Cold War idea and how it relates right back to not just your investment portfolio, but also your business, right? Think about building your entire business on a tech stack that is based off of a company that now is being told they can't do this deal, they can't operate. They could literally shut the business down altogether if they wanted to, because of where it's based. And if you build your business on a technology thinking this is going to be amazing, I can't wait to grow my company using Manus, right? Which has so many really cool capabilities, plugging into Meta, plugging into all the different AI tools out there so you can actually streamline your business and grow your business. What if they just took that away? What if all of a sudden your entire business is built on something that doesn't exist tomorrow, right? That impacts you personally. It's not one of these things, oh, it's happening to somebody else down the road. And a lot of people don't even realize what technology or what the companies are that they built their businesses on in some cases. And so this can become a very scary situation where, you heard them. They had to secretly get these people out of China on a private jet in the middle of the night over to a country where they could get the deal done. And even still, the Chinese government is putting pressure on Meta to say, no, you're not allowed to do this deal. You're not allowed to use this company anymore. And how do they block it eventually? If any of you guys have ever watched shows like Homeland or any of these CIA shows, there's so much stuff going on behind the scenes that we don't even know about. And if they shut the technology down, they shut the businesses down, they prevent the deals from happening, whatever's driving your results right now could actually be dramatically impacted, right? And so paying attention to this stuff and understanding what's happening is really important, because it does come right back to those of us who are business owners and investors, knowing how it's going to impact our portfolio, impact our long-term wealth, and our ability to actually earn is very important.
No, that's well said, and I think that's part of the thing that I really want everyone to get as a small business owner. As a small business owner, reiterating what Jeff just said, what are you building your business on, and is that company you're building your business on going to be around tomorrow, let alone 6 months or a year, 2 years from now? So, Josh, let's hear what do you have to think about this?
Yeah, so I think it's a tough thing to answer. Will this business be around? We're in the day and age of the internet has always had fragmentation, right? Fragmentation meaning that you have different pieces here and there. You have this company doing this and this company doing this. And if you're a small business, you might have 10 different software companies that you're using right now to run your business. And what the internet has done over the course of 20 years is it's become less and less fragmented. And we've seen all the small tools and all the small providers get eaten up by these big providers. I think this is what's happening right now with AI. Right now, we have so many different AI companies. We have so many sub companies that are utilizing the big platforms and they're building wrappers on top of the big companies. And right now, we're witnessing even the big companies may not be around here tomorrow. And it's sort of a really hard question to ask yourself of who do I build on and what's going to happen in the next year or 2 years. AI is changing so fast, the internet forever. I've never seen anything like this. Nobody has. Nobody has seen the internet evolve this fast, change this fast, update this fast overnight. And it's continuing to kind of make our heads spin. And we're seeing stuff like this. And we're gonna see more of this. I'm a firm believer that ultimately in 5 or 10 years, we might only have a few AI companies that outlast the rest. Right. And which is going to be interesting. I think we're at a really kind of interesting place in the web where it's just changing so fast. Nobody really knows what's going on. And I think the companies that have really high evaluations right now could be gone overnight in the next 5 years.
I think that's the whole point, right? We have to kind of work and get into communities like the one that we have and the one that we're creating. And it's moving at such a pace that even guys like us, we're just mind boggled by it. And I'm going to show you some other clips of people that make us look, we're dwarfs. We're like, I got a clip coming up of the CEO of Nvidia. I got a clip coming up of the Ken Griffin, one of the largest, most successful hedge funds out there. And it's really kind of remarkable. Let me play a little bit more of this clip and let's see if there's anything else we want to mention on this clip, and then we'll kind of move on.
Very serious. Holy crap.
Yeah, no, it's great.
That doesn't happen.
I think they're viewing AI models.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly right. This is actually what they're leaning on.
What's so weird about this is when
Oh, lost the audio there.
work on nuclear weapons, they know they're making that choice.
Is it back?
When you decided 7 years ago to work on AI, you didn't know that you were going to end up being.
Did the audio come back?
Yeah, it came back, but we're saying, right? So there's all these really smart kids coming out of high school and college graduates because these college graduates have been indoctrinated. That's a topic for a whole other day to be employees, right? And these high school kids that still have this ambition and these dreams and these motivations, they're going out there and building things using AI. But all these guys are learning how to use AI. And as a result, they're out earning college graduates right now. But one of the things he's talking about is that political prisoner, right? You are building something because you think it's so cool and you want to build this. And all of a sudden, what you're building is becoming political decisions. And no one thinks about that. Like you go and you start learning a skill to build value in the world and start making money. And then all of a sudden you're realizing, oh man, I'm at this crossroad where the thing that I just learned how to do is putting me at risk and putting my family at risk because I'm building it in a place that doesn't really allow me or want me to do that, because then you can export that IP to another country like the United States where you can make a lot more money, and China wants to control the purse strings. They want to be in control of this process. So it is really interesting. Going back to what Josh was saying, the landscape is changing so dramatically. You have to stay on top of this stuff and you have to continue to build those skills and those abilities in your own world. Paying attention to what technologies you're building on is very important.
Another thing that not many people talk about is this idea that you can build something and then tomorrow somebody else copies it, right? ChatGPT came out with a mind-boggling product, and overnight we had 10 competitors, right? And then we had 5 competitors, then we had 20 competitors. And then somebody came out with a better AI model for imaging, and then that created a better model for that. It goes back and forth, and it's a level of competition, because what I believe is really they just mentioned this on their last talk, where they're creating a new model called Omni, where it's going to be all their models into one. So you'll be able to do multimodal imaging, video, chat, text, you name it, in one single model without switching, which is where this is all going, right? This is all going to be a better, easier solution for everybody. But another interesting thing is you can build something today and then somebody could open source it tomorrow. Right. And it's just wild. It's a really wild time.
Yeah.
Oh, it really is. And we're going to go through that. I told somebody the other day that I feel like I sat on the sideline for a year and a half going, okay, what platform do we kind of sink our teeth into that we can build our future on for the future of launch commerce and re-upgrading launch cart, some of our software tools. But okay, so I want to move on to the next topic. And the next topic is going to be W-2 earners. And I heard this stat and I heard this stat that as many as 30% of white collar workers are going to lose their job, not in the next 5 years, 10 years, in the next 2 years. Then I heard this other stat where 44% of the young kids, I don't know if that's the Gen Zs, the millennials, in their workforce are sabotaging the implementation of AI so they don't lose their jobs. Are you kidding me? Oh my gosh. So before I play a couple clips, let me get your thought on the W-2 and the job loss that's coming, Jeff.
So back in 2003, I read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and I was like, that changed my mindset and how I'm thinking about everything. And I wanted to actually grow. And I was a mechanic at the time. And so I'm starting to learn all these different things about finance and how to build value. And that's why my career's taken this really windy, turny road to where I am today. But the fact is that AI is replacing all of these people that thought they had a good, solid career going in and becoming middle management and coders and developers. And these people, we were told for the last 20 years, get a degree in computer science. Computers aren't going anywhere. They're growing, they're changing. And Mike Rowe talks about this a lot. He says, listen, what is AI not going to replace tomorrow? It's not going to replace the people that actually work with their hands, that get dirty, the ones that are laying the plumbing and the piping and the houses and building houses. Maybe robotics will take over some of that stuff in the future. But right now, what is it? It's knowledge workers. It's all these people that for the last 20, 30 years have been saying, yeah, as long as I continue to grow in my ranks and learn stuff like how do I do Excel and Microsoft databases and Azure and all these different things and building out technologies, that's safe, right? But not anymore, right? Because AI can come in and it can do it a lot better, a lot faster, and a lot cheaper. And anybody who has been using their brain to do this and relying on one skill set and has not implemented using AI to supplement or complement what they're doing, then they're going to be struggling. And so even BlackRock came out, I think it was late last year, they said they're going to invest $100 million to create essentially a scholarship fund to start getting more workers who are going to be able to do the things that AI can't do, right? Because AI is stuck in the cloud, stuck in a computer. It can't go out there and physically swing a hammer or plumbing and things like that. And so even the biggest companies, the biggest hedge funds in the world, BlackRock is saying, we're going to invest in the future of manpower because we need that. Even the Nvidia CEO is talking about the fact that we need to make investments in the future of workers, not knowledge workers, not the white collar, not pay people that know how to use computers properly. We need to invest in people that know how to put this stuff together, to build the data centers, the infrastructure to support all of this. Because if we don't have that, we don't have it in a big scale. So they're going to lose their jobs. But there is a solution to this, and we'll get to that in just a minute.
It's kind of funny that there's some kind of thing about that.
Ironic.
Interesting. Here's what I'll say is that if you sit on a computer and that's your job for 8 hours a day and you're pressing your button, you're moving your mouse around, this is the easiest thing for AI to do. Right? AI is a computer itself, basically. It can do computer things. So you're talking about, so now they sit in front of a desk and they sit down all day, 8 hours a day, and they move their mouse around and they press a keyboard. And I'm sorry, but that's what they do. Everyone does it, right? All my friends do it. I live downtown. Everyone that I know works in a high rise and they all work at home typically. Maybe they'll go into an office, but even if they do, they're sitting down at the computer, moving their mouse around, typing out some keys. And we are seeing AI and we're seeing that type of work. It can read the browser, it can read the internet, it can click on things, it can do your job. So now you have to ask yourself, if it's going to replace me, what can I do so it doesn't replace me? And what people are doing now with these multimodal agent models is they're now scaling their efforts. Now they're managing a bunch of agents to do 10 times the output of what they were doing, right? If I can only do 8 hours a day, but I can have an agent do 80 hours a day or multi-agents do 80 hours a day, then that's why I moved from copywriters, right? And you change in the company. Now I'm a manager of agents that are doing my job and I'm helping it do my job better. And I'm helping it do my job at a scale that we've never seen before. What the cost?
And of course, there's no such thing as 100 hours a day. But what you just said, Josh, is important, right? How do you get that same output 16 hours a day? But the fact is, how do you work 100 hours a day? We have other people that are doing the work. And his point was, how can I get other employees to do the work? Now I don't need employees. I don't need the headache of HR. I don't need the headache of them calling in sick or needing all the benefits and all these different things. So the AI agents can do this. And guys, give us some comments, give us some questions. We'd love to answer these too. John's he's at Lake Powell, which one of my favorite places in the whole wide world, a Rainbow Bridge there using Starlink. So again, satellite technology to call in here and be in here. And he's talking about the rebellion against AI, how people are rebelling against this idea. And Greg just mentioned it. These people who are afraid of losing their jobs are literally sabotaging companies to prevent them from instituting AI technology in the workforce so they don't lose their jobs, right? People get afraid and they figure out, how do I stop this thing from happening so that I'm safe? And what they don't realize is that no matter how much you try to go against that, the power, it's going to happen, right? There's no ifs, ands, or buts about this. There is no shortage of capital flowing into the space and no shortage of abilities and skills that AI is going to create. So it will happen.
Well, you replace your job, right? There's not letting AI do it. So it's like, you can't win. That's a losing scenario. You think you're helping, but really you just have a limited mindset of how this AI works and how many of the millions and millions of people that are right now working on it on replacing a lot of tasks.
Yeah, and I'll give you a perfect example. Not changed, right? We all try to protect ourselves. We all put ourselves and our families first. But I live out near Seattle, and Seattle is one of those cities that decided to institute a minimum wage of $15, $20 an hour. And they said, this is going to lift up the overall economy and it's going to help all these people. What did they do? The McDonald's, the Starbucks, a lot of these different companies, we were seeing it everywhere in grocery stores. They said, okay, we can't afford to keep paying you guys that. Really, the company is paying $40, $50, $100 an hour because of the benefits and the taxes and all these other things that go into that. They said, that's too expensive. We can't continue to be profitable and do that. So we're going to replace you with kiosks. So now there's self-checkout everywhere you go. If they sabotage themselves, the innovators of the world will find a way around that. So we don't even need those people anymore at all. Operating from a fear and scarcity mindset is not the right path. You have to figure out a way to embrace it. As ugly and scary as it might be, you have to embrace it to find a way to make yourself even more valuable so they can't get rid of you.
Okay, a little bit of Joshua is not a coder, although he understands coding, he's managed programmers. He created a program called Survey Samson, which is #1 when I type in Survey Samson on Google, coming up here. And the whole website, the whole thing, it does surveys. It helps engagement with emails. It does polls. It's incredible. He coded it himself, and he's not a coder. You think about that, and you just go, okay, you're right. Coders are one of the first things to go. So let me play this clip. John was mentioning somebody's volume was messed up. I don't know who that is, but if you let us know who that is, John, we can kind of work on that. Let me play this next video, kind of what we've been talking about, but a couple other videos here.
Dave, can we talk to our general public listening to this, mom, dad, entrepreneurs, students about this? From my perspective, the question of if you're looking for a job, where do you go try and find a job? And then if you're trying to invest your nest egg, and I know it's dangerous to give investment advice, but in general here, I think it's important to translate all of this to people listening here who are not running an exponential organization.
I think the most important starting thought is you have to invest. The future of assets is, Elon was saying, 10x GDP growth in 10 years. That means all assets, whether it's a house or a data center, or all assets are going to go way up in value at a time where W-2 income is not a good place to be. And so you have to, at some point, switch to investing just as a founding thought.
It's a rising tide. You have to invest and float at the top of this.
Yeah. And so then the other thing is investing benefits tremendously from change. And so on the prior slide, people are scared of AI. It's because they're scared of change in general. But change is a wonderful thing when you're investing. New opportunities open up at an incredible rate. And if you can discover a new opportunity early, we've been talking about this a lot, Peter, like the Intel was an obvious one to us. And that's been great. What's next? What's next is there are many things we've talked about just in this podcast that are obvious trends that are going to trigger the next wave of either public equities that already exist going up or new startups that need to come into the world that you wouldn't have thought of 3 years ago.
And I think what I've done in the past, and everybody can do here, is go to your favorite large language model and say, listen, I want to understand what are the chip companies out there, and plot for me what their PE ratio has been and what people are saying about it. You can do your research now a lot easier than ever before. And I don't want to say that you can't go wrong buying a bucket of chip companies or energy companies or infrastructure companies, but I think that's generally correct. This whole thing is moving upwards at a very rapid rate.
So he's talking about investing in chip companies and data centers and infrastructure energy companies, and all these different things. And why is that? It's because the computing power of AI is astronomical, right? And it goes back to the gold rush era. Who made the most money? The guys that were selling the picks and shovels, the guys that were selling the covered wagons and getting people out west. They're the ones that made the money because they were selling the thing that everybody needed to go after this, right? So when you think about Nvidia as a chip maker, you think about the data centers that are out there, the energy companies that are supplying all the power for this, they're the ones that are going to be the valuable ones, not necessarily there's a lot of companies, and we could talk about the private companies because the public equities have gone down tremendously. And so people are investing more in private stock, private equities, because those are the companies that are not as limited by earnings reports and things like that, but they are creating the opportunity for this AI to flourish. And as a result, maybe they're not the most valuable, but the ones that will be valuable are the picks and shovels companies, right? The ones that are making sure that this continues to flourish.
And what hit me with that so much was W-2 earning is not going to be accelerating in assets and classes. So take a look at this chart. So going back to blue chip stocks, this is the 1-year chart for Intel. In April of this year, it was at $44.13. It's currently at $116. That's incredible. 455% increase in the last year with Intel. And then you look over here, AMD chip company, $444 currently. Let's look at the 1-year chart. 1-year chart. It's just, look at that.
Yep,
And here's what the smart money's betting on. That's not over. If we do get on a track to hit a 10 times GDP, all these assets are going to continue to go up. It's not too late.
Times have we heard people say, AI is only going to get more involved in our lives, going to take over everything. Guess what? It's hardly taken over anything as of right now. It may seem like it's taken over a lot, but really, if you look at all the devices and all the people online, how many people actually use AI right now, that percentage is tiny. And I know, Dad, you have some stats about this that you were telling me recently, but the active usage rate, right? This is going to get to a point in the future where you're going to be interacting with AI literally 24/7 on every single device you own, whether it's your smartwatch, whether it's your cell phone, whether it's your glasses, whether it's your car, whether it's a TV at a gas station. It does not matter where you go, you'll be interacting with an AI. And when you do that, you're using processors and you're using energy, right? So we're at a place right now where the AI usage is so tiny, and yet we're already running out of power and we're already running out of processors, and we can't make the chips fast enough. People don't understand how we are like at 1%, could be in 10, 20 years. And they don't understand how much from a thing that you talk to, if it has a battery in it, going to have AI built into it.
And the W-2 thing is really important too. I think they get scared. And let's face it, back in 1974, when the ERISA laws changed, and all of a sudden we went from pensions and defined benefits to defined contributions, 401ks, IRAs, wages have not gone up since then. When we got off the gold standard, if you look back right now, wages have actually gone down in relation to how much gold was worth and what people were getting paid prior to us going off the gold standard. So this is nothing new, right? W-2 employees for the last 50 years have not been able to even keep up with our GDP growth and our cost of living increases. So this is nothing new when it comes to where should I be spending my time and energy to make money. It's a fact of value every single day. And I love this quote from Dan Kennedy, and he talks about it a lot, which is every single year is more money or not. And the fact is that most people are not, right? They're doing the same job over and over again, and they're not increasing the overall value of their output, which means the value of the company is not going up. So why should I pay somebody more? So not only are they not making more money, but inflation is eroding their cost of living and their ability to actually earn. And yeah, this sucks for people that thought they had this idea of just going to college, get a degree and work for 40 years and then retire with a big nest egg. It's not going to happen. You have to learn how to invest. You have to learn how to make money using this stuff. And you have to learn where to spend your time and energy and your money so that you can increase your overall value and your quality of living.
No, and that we were talking about that earlier, Jeff, about the income. Get to that today. But let me go ahead and play this next little clip because I'm going to play a really sobering, and it's something, again, wake up, everybody, wake up. It's coming. It's here. So check this one out.
Number one is, in the last few months, there has been a step change function in the productivity of the AI toolkit. It is profoundly more powerful than it was just 9 months ago. And for us at Citadel, that has allowed us to unleash a much broader array of use cases for AI. And it has been really interesting to watch, to be blunt, work that we would usually do with people with masters and PhDs in finance over the course of weeks or months being done by AI agents over the course of hours or days. So automated by agentic AI. And I got to tell you, I went home one Friday, actually fairly depressed by this, because you could just see how this was going to have such a dramatic impact on society. And when you witness it in your own four walls, when you see work that used to be man years of work being done in days or weeks, it's like, wow, like that's the first time I've seen real impact in our four walls.
Right? So when I saw that and I started thinking about this, and again, I was thinking it would be something interesting, guys, is if we could figure out how many tokens have each one of us consumed in the last 30 days, right? Because somebody was asking me, like I was talking to somebody earlier, and I said, I use it every day. And I'm like, hours a day at least. What about you, Jeff and Josh? What do you guys think about that clip with Ken Griffin and the use of AI?
Oh, not just millions or hundreds of millions, billions of tokens. And the reason why is because so arrogant as to say that I was already a high output performer, right? I know that I can do stuff a lot faster than most people because I'm very good at and working on it. And I've done that throughout my career. It's just something I love to do as part of my personality. So my output's already been high. My output is easily 10, if not 100 times more than what it used to be, because now the things that I used to spend time dealing with, all the delays of the window opening and all these different things, I can, instead of me doing it, I can train an AI agent to go do it. So I can have one agent working on this thing over here, one agent working on this website, one agent working on the client thing, one agent working on email marketing, another one doing graphic design. I can analyze an entire ad account now, and I can do the analytics in about minutes, whereas it used to take me hours, and the output is even better than what I could have done. And I was pretty dang good at it, right? So the fact is that there is no shortage of where this is going to take us and how much more productive people are going to become as a result. And what does that mean? That means the most productive person that can drive the most revenue and profits is going to be the most valuable, not just top line, right? It's great to drive top line revenue in a company, but if you're driving top line revenue in a negative company, right? We don't want to have negative EBITDA, negative profits. So instead, we want to focus on how do we increase our productivity while also lowering our costs, because this makes us more profitable. And that's exactly why we're seeing the value of these stocks and these companies increase. Like they talked about replacing all of Wall Street with AI. And Greg, you and I both been to the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, and it's completely different than back when you were an investment banker, right? You don't have all the guys holding up the slips and trying to get the stock purchases. But now it's decentralized. People can move where they want to move. We saw all this happen during COVID as well at an exponential rate. And now it's just going to continue to accelerate. And as a result, you can have more productive people working anywhere in the world. That's going to drive the overall value of the company up, drive the costs down, and you're going to be able to get a lot more done as a result of doing it this way. So people that are paying attention to this are making massive moves. No, we don't need those jobs here anymore. It's way too expensive. The political climate's not what we want it to be. It's not helpful for us on taxes. So we're moving. And now these people can do their jobs from the middle of nowhere if they needed to and still be just as productive, if not more.
What about you, Josh? What kind of thoughts do you got?
I think about the future really clearly, a lot better than I used to. When I started out online, I never knew what was going to happen, but now you can really see it because you can see all the building blocks. It's like we spent the last 2 decades building this incredible system, and now we're seeing it. Driverless cars. We're starting to see how that will eventually replace every gasoline and diesel car, right? It's going to take a long time, but we can see the end of it and how Waymos are coming into more and more cities. And just talking about token usage, I'm averaging right now through one of my tools, I just looked at it while we're on the call, about 150 million tokens a day. What if you average 1 trillion tokens a day, or let's just say 50 billion tokens a day, right? What if your output goes from, it only takes me a week. What if that took a day, or what if that took an hour, or what if that took a minute, right? And you really start to up this idea of AI. What does AI do? We know for a fact it gets better, and we know for a fact it does more and it gets smarter. So just extract that a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, and know all of that, right? So what if I didn't have to talk to it so much? And what if I didn't have to learn my systems? But what if you could tell it one sentence and it could do the output of what took me 10 days right now? And then what if that's kind of where we're getting. And that's where all the big companies like Google are trying to get to, right? Giving it more context, giving it more, just the ability to do more with less and to do it way better. And we're seeing that in development. You mentioned Survey Samson. When I built Survey Samson originally, when the AI builders came out and I was vibe coding it, I think I took a month to build that. And then the platform I was using, it was crashing, it was buggy, it didn't work. And so I ended up rebuilding it using a new platform like months later, better in a week. Right. So that was like a 6-month gap. It took me a week. And then you just extrapolate that out again and go, maybe that'll take me a day. Maybe that'll take me a few hours. What happens to the world when you can do years worth of work in minutes? And I don't think anybody has a really good answer to that.
Yeah. All right, let me do this real quick. Involved actually. And we're in the business of helping businesses grow with AI. And we are a unified e-commerce ecosystem for entrepreneurs with CRM, e-commerce, advertising platforms, webinar platforms, big data, all kinds of things to help you grow and implement AI into your business. So if you're sitting here watching this podcast and you're sitting there yourself going, God, I got to get on the ball. I need some help. We want to help you. We would like to help you install AI into your business. And then conversely, we're also being sponsored by the Mastermind Investment Club. And the Mastermind Investment Club is leveraging the principles of a mastermind when it comes to investing and allowing people in community and groups put thought process together in all kinds of tax advantages, tax savings, early stage investing, IPO investing, gold, silver, cryptocurrency. And this is led and run by Jeff Barnes. So I want to say thanks, Jeff. Appreciate that for the sponsorship. And as we kind of move on, kind of get to where we're wrapping this up, let me play this last little clip that is really kind of some good news of everything we're talking about. Again, now this is from the founder the CEO of Nvidia. And for those of you who don't know, Nvidia, I think it's still, Google was kind of with their little 20% rating, is still the largest, maybe you can check, Jeff, is still the largest market cap of any company. So it's the most valuable company on the planet. But so you got to take, when guys like this talk, we got to listen.
This is a technology that has the potential to automate many aspects of human labor very soon. And I'm curious the degree to which you feel a responsibility for making that transition go well.
What AI will do is to make tasks that we do in our job more efficient. Our job is not to wrangle a spreadsheet. Our job is not to type into a keyboard. Our job is generally more meaningful than that. I'm fairly confident that AI will drive productivity, revenue growth, and therefore more hiring. There's a belief that the world's GDP is somehow limited at $100 trillion. $300 trillion, $500 trillion. There's no fundamental limit to the size of a GDP. And actually quite small. And so what if we brought the rest of the world, the rest of society, the rest of the world's population, empower them with AI, give them the opportunity to participate in the GDP and causes GDP to quintuple? I think that's a very likely outcome. And it's very likely that companies will become more prosperous. But it's for certain. This is for certain. Everybody's jobs will change as a result of AI. Some jobs will disappear. Obviously, every single industrial revolution, some jobs are just gone, but a whole bunch of new jobs are created. Everybody will have to use AI, because if you don't use AI, you're going to lose your job to somebody who does.
That just pins it perfectly, right? If you do not learn how to use this stuff, then you are falling so far behind the wagon that you will not be able to keep up, right? My kids are now at a point, I told them, I was like, listen, I know how much money you guys can make. You guys will be making 6 figures before you get out of high school. And they're not even in high school yet. But if you start learning how to do this stuff, then you will be able to make more money getting out of high school than I did after 20 years in the workforce, right? Because there is no limit and there's no barrier to entry. I think that's really the important point here. You know, we created unions a long time ago, and those unions became incredibly powerful and created a massive barrier to entry to scaling up through a company. And it was fine at the time. We didn't have labor laws, but I think unions will have seen their days numbered, because the fact is that there's And as long as you have an internet connection and a laptop, or not even a laptop anymore, you can do it with a phone using AI. There is no more barrier to entry. The only barrier is people's self-limiting beliefs. Can I do this? Should I do this? Or their fear that holds them back from getting into it. And when you start seeing continent, and as a result, it is going to create this massive uplift in their socioeconomic viability in the global marketplace. And that's a continent, not just a country, but an entire continent that is not really factored into the massive uptick in global GDP, like he's just talking about. And you don't need to be sitting at the feet of the masters, because let's face it, we have YouTube, we have Google, we have ChatGPT, we have all these tools that can teach people things. Heck, even MIT is putting their classes online for free. You can go learn this stuff tomorrow. And the only limiting factor is whether you will or not.
All right. So we're coming up on the top of the hour. Jeff has a hard stop. So that's some good final words from Jeff. How about you, Josh? How about some final words from you? And we'll wrap it up.
Go to Gemini.google.com, go to ChatGPT, start asking the questions. I talk to so many people who don't use it, and they're worried, they're weird, they don't know what to do. And I go about your business, ask them about relationships, and don't be afraid of it. Just ask it. Ask them about AI and just start utilizing it. And that's the first step.
All right. I'll kind of wrap it up with, I want to say thanks for tuning in. Next week's show, we'll talk about how we're using it and how I have 13 agents doing stuff for me. Josh has got agents doing stuff for him, and how we're building these. And what's a really interesting concept is we're getting ready to do a raise for Launch Commerce. At least we're considering it seriously. And somebody asked me yesterday on some form I was filling out, how many employees do you have? Okay. So you can run these companies with these agents. You can make it happen. And I just want to say thank you very much for joining us today. Do what we do. Wake up every day with an attitude of gratitude. Tell somebody you love them, and you'll have a better day. Signing off.